Hey guys, today we're going to start cones and what the formula is for cones and how we would kind of work that out on our worksheets. So we're going to start by doing these notes here. If you are a color coder, this is your day, because we're going to be able to do that if you have the pens to do so, or you can use my markers. Either way works for me. What we're going to do first is we are going to kind of identify the different portions and characteristics of a cone. Most of these you should be familiar with from yesterday's lesson. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify that the radius is going to look like a lowercase r, and it means that it is going to go halfway, just like this, halfway across the center of the base, and the center of the base is going to be a circle for us right now. So we're going to put halfway across the base. Okay, and then we're going to use, then we're going to use our colored pencils if you have them, and we are going to label this right here as R. R goes halfway across, and that's exactly what we need for our formulas that we'll see later. The diameter means that it looks like a lowercase d, and it means that we are going all the way across, so all the way across the base. And that means that we would have to modify this one, which you guys should know. So we're going to always put d over 2 to divide it by half and get r. So if you ever encounter one that goes all the way across like this, that would be, this entire total would be d. And we're going to need to do d over 2, so it'd be like half, to get r. That should just be a refresher. Okay, the height. The height is going to represent itself as a lowercase h, and it means how tall it is. So how tall the figure is. So right here, we're seeing the height. So we can go ahead and label that as h, and it means how tall. Area of the base. We should all know what that stands for because we did an entire lesson on it. So area of the base is represented by big B, and that means the area of the circle, because currently our bases are all going to be circles. In spheres, there isn't going to be a base, but you also won't have to include that, so that's the positive. All right, so this right here, we're going to just put a B here, and we know that that is represented by pi r squared. So anytime you see the B, so if it says volume is B times H, then that means we need pi r squared times h, which would be your height. Okay, so what we're going to do here, this is a formula that was already pre-printed. We're not going to use these two formulas. We're going to go ahead and stick with what we would use on STAR. That way you guys are not seeing something that you wouldn't be using and it's not on your formula chart. So we're going to use V equals, and what we're going to do is we're going to do 1/3, so 1 over 3 pi r squared times height. So when you see this on your formula chart, it may say 1 divided by 3 and then BH. Well, we know that pi r squared is the big B. So if we just go ahead and put it out like this and kind of train our brains to see it that way, it'll make it a lot easier for you to know to plug, this is B, to plug it in. So this is going to be the formula that we're going to be using for all of our cones. All right, so we're going to go up to our examples. Okay, and for example 1, we're going to do a cone. I'm going to draw it. You do not have to, but if you can, that would be great. So all you have to do to draw a cone is you're going to kind of do a triangle with a rounded base, and then the back side kind of rounds too, like a rainbow. And then we are going to give it a height and a diameter on this one. So we're going to go all the way across. That's going to be our D. The height for this one is going to be 12 inches. And our diameter is going to be 14 centimeters. Okay, so then down here we can go ahead and write D equals 14 and H equals 12. So we have to remember, what do we always need to do to the diameter if it goes all the way across? I only need half of it. So what do I need to do if I'm going to half anything? If I was going to cut anything in half, I would be dividing it into 2 separate parts. So I'm going to put 14 over 2. And get 7, and that will be our R. Okay, so now we're going to start with our formula. We have V equals 1 over 3. I do want you guys writing this part, so please do not leave it out. So we have big B and H. This is what you see on your star chart. We're going to now write that out as 1 over 3, and B, we know it from up here, is pi r squared. So we're going to do pi r squared, and then our H is going to be our height, which is right here, the 12. So we're going to kind of plug that in here. Now, when you do this in your calculator to solve, pull that up right here. This one isn't too tricky, so you should be able to remember how to divide. 1 divided by 3, just like that. And then we're going to go down and use our pi button. Remember, our pi button is the second from the bottom right here. Pi, our r, is going to be, in this situation, our r is now 7. So we should have 1 over 3 pi, and then 7 squared times 12. So that's how we're going to put it in. So we are going to now enter our 7 squared. Remember, your squared button is right here below the trig button. And then we will multiply that times 12. Hit enter. And I know mine has a little bit of a glare on it. There we go, 615,752. Now we are going to go to the hundredths because that's what we've been consistently doing in our worksheets. So does a 2 round up a 5? Remember, if it's less than 4, leave it alone. If it's 5 or more, then we're going to raise it up. So this is less than 4, it's a 2, so we're going to do 615.75. So our volume for this one is going to be 615.75. And that's our answer. Okay. Now we're going to do number 2. Example number 2, we're just going to do an inverted cone, which means it's more like an ice cream cone. And it will have a height and a radius. Okay, so our radius is going to be 15 on this one, and our height is going to be 30 on this one. So we're going to put little r equals 15, and our little h is going to equal 30. And we're going to use the exact same formula. This time we won't have to divide for the diameter, which is helpful. And we know that this is going to be written again. So base is pi r squared, and our height is going to be, I'm sorry, I should have plugged in the r there. Let's see, I'll just delete. Okay, so it should be pi and then 15 squared, and then we're going to multiply that times 30 for the h. So now we're going to put this into our calculator. See if you can see mine. Okay, so we're going to do 1 divided by 3, hit our pi button. Okay, and then we're going to do 15 squared times 30. Hit enter. So on this one we get 7068.58. Well, that's going to be okay because the 58 is not going to round due to it being already in the hundredths place. So our answer is B equals 7068.58. Okay, so if you just notice, all we're doing is plugging in for what they give us. Here's our formula, and we just literally went and found that the R was here, so we plugged it in. The H was here, so we plugged it in, and then we put this whole thing in our calculator, and it did the work for us and gave us the answer. Okay? So we're going to do some examples on this at the end, but we're going to go ahead and go to spheres because that's our second portion of this video notes. So what we're going to do there is find out what, this is a little bit more, it's a little different because it doesn't have a base. It's a little different in that way. A sphere is anything like a ball or anything that is a 3D figure of a circle. Okay, so the radius on this is going to be the same. It's going to be from any point on the ball or anything like that, it's going to be halfway through. So we're going to put halfway through to the center. Okay, and then pi, we all know what pi is. Pi is 3.14, or in our calculator it looks like this funny little h. Okay, so on our ball we're going to label it. If I went here, that would be the radius. Now, just like on the other ones with our bases, if I were to go all the way across like this total of this would be the diameter. So if that happens, I would need to divide it by 2. So I need to divide and get a new answer, and that would be my little r. Okay, so that stayed consistent and the same. And then we can go to our formulas. So our formula that we're using here is going to be exactly what we use on our worksheets. So the only thing you need to add, it didn't copy correctly, is this is a division sign, so it's a fraction, 4/3, and then pi r to the third. Now there's a trick on this one. Notice that to the third. We don't have a button that directly does that like we did for squared in our calculator, so I'm going to show you which button you're going to use for that. So in your calculator, if you go 2 down from the control, there's a little arrow. It looks like a little roof to a housetop. You're going to hit that arrow, and it will give you a little box for an exponent. That's where you would put your 3. So you're going to go arrow 3 to get your exponent of 3. Okay, so that's how we would do that. I will go over that again whenever we are doing these examples down here. So just make sure that you can remember this is 4/3 pi r, so it's still our radius. And then we're going to do like a little housetop. Looks like this. You can go ahead and add this in to remind you. We'll put our little housetop there, and it will put us up to the 3. If you want to over here, you can also write that it is the second button under the control. So under the control button, the yellow button, then we can just go down 2, and it will be the little housetop. Okay, so let me get this situated. Okay, so example number 1, we're going to have a sphere. My drawing skills of these are not good. Then we're going to go underneath. Okay, and I'm going to make my point halfway through. And it is going to have a radius of 18 inches. Okay, so that means that my little r is going to equal 18. Okay, on this one we don't have a height or anything like that because this is going to be around, circular. So my formula is v equals 4/3 pi r to the third. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to plug in our 18 as our r. So we're going to have v equals 4/3 pi, then we're going to take our r, 18, to the third. Okay, now we're ready to put it into our calculators. So the 4/3 is going to stay the same way you did the 1/3 a minute ago, but the only thing is going to be that change in that rooftop button. Okay, so hopefully this will work where you can see it. So we're going to do 4 divided by 3. Let me see. Then we're going to hit our pi button. Pops up like that. Pi, and now we have our r. Our r in this situation was 18, so I'm just going to hit 18, 1, 8. Now I'm going to go to this button right here. So here's my control. I'm going to go down 2. I'm going to hit up. Now, since it needs to be to the third, see how it popped it up above the 18? It's kind of blinking right there. We're going to go hit 3. Okay, so now I have a 3 there. I have 4 divided by 3, pi 18 to the third. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter. If I can find the button. Did I hit the wrong thing? Okay, enter. And I'm going to get 744, or no, I'm sorry, 24429. Looking through this camera is not working very well. So the answer to this one is going to be 24429. And there is nothing after this, so there's no decimals to round or any hundreds place or anything like that. So this would be our final answer for the volume of this one. All right, let's go to number 2. Make sure I can get this all in. Number 2, we're going to do a half of a circle. So if you've ever seen half of the earth or anything like that in the model images that you would see in science, or half of a tennis ball, anything like that, this is called a hemisphere. So go ahead and label that and include it. Okay, so a hemisphere is a half of a circle. It's anything chopped in half basically. So this one is going to have a radius of 12 inches. So our little r equals 12. Now this one's going to be done just a little bit different because we don't have the whole sphere. So it's a half a sphere, and that means that we're going to have to add in a half. So our volume formula is going to be half, then 4/3 pi r to the third. Okay, so now we're going to just plug in our answer. So we have half, 4/3, none of these change with the pi. And our r is this 12, so we're going to put 12 to the third. Okay, so now we're just going to compute that in our calculator. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's see if I can be still, 1 divided by 2, and then I'm going to do 4 divided by 3. Okay, and then I'm going to do pi. I did not hit pi, I'm sorry. Pi, our r in this one is 12. And I'm going to do my little house top button right here to the third. And then I will hit enter. And I get 3619.11. And there's no rounding to be done there either. So 3619.11. Sorry guys, I'm looking through the top of this. It's not as easy as I thought it would be. So that would be our final. So remember that if you ever see, which you will on your worksheets, a half of a 3D sphere, you're going to need to do it as a hemisphere, which means I need to put half in front of my formula because it's half of what we would normally be using this formula for. Okay, so that is the end of that. What we're going to do next is you have a sheet that looks a little similar to this. It should have 2 less boxes. You're going to have numbers 3 and 4 here. Now what you're going to do with that is you're going to look at the board and find what color group you're in. If you are in the purple group, I want you to pause this video right here, and I want you to go ahead. You do not have to write all of these questions down, but I do want you to write the information and show your work. So I need you to get this information, pause it, write it down, and then work these 2 problems for me. Okay, so that's purple. I'm going to switch now, and I'm going to go to green. If you are in the green group, you're going to pause this video now and copy down this information, or look at it while you write, either way, and work these 2 problems. Please show your work. This needs to be done before you get to Math Workshop. Okay, and last but not least, we have blue group. If you are in the blue group, you will copy down this information and work this while it's paused out. So remember, you don't have to draw the figures if you can't draw them, but you do have to get this information and show it to me. Okay guys, I will end this video now, so thank you, and I hope that you can have these completed by the time that we get to Math Workshop so that we can check them and move forward. Thanks.